All right, what you see here is a Bahama Hugger ceiling fan. This is possibly the second biggest childhood fan for me that's not a KDK, aside from the hand-to-bake carousel that I have. Although that fan I got after seeing this as a kid. This fan I know for a fact that I saw like as a newborn because this fan was there before I was born, and it's from 1991. This is the exact one that was installed in my grandmother's living room. So for that reason, it's extremely sentimental to me. It's without a doubt the first generic hugger ceiling fan I've ever seen. And that's another reason why I like generic huggers a lot, even the cheaper, newer ones that they have. Because they just look like newer versions of this, basically. But yeah, the fan's from April of 1991. It was installed by my grandmother's cousin from Canada, from what she told me. And it had been there ever since. And when we sold her house in 2021, I made sure to take this with me because I didn't want to leave this fan behind. For the longest time, I always wanted to get this fan. Like, ever since I started the channel, I've been wanting to get this fan 10 years ago. And she didn't let me get it at the time because she liked it so much, which I don't blame her. It is a nice looking fan for that living room. And I would try various ways to try to get it off her, explaining how it was making a motor noise, but when I come to find out, it was actually like one of the ground wires and they're rubbing against the motor. So as of now, it doesn't make that sound anymore. But if you guys want to see the sound I'm talking about, go and check out one of the older videos I've done on this fan. But yeah, ever since I took it out of my grandmother's house 2 years ago, I've had it in my closet in the bedroom where I have that wooden shelf of the few fan motors. It's been there all this time. I just couldn't find the blade arms because in my room I've been redoing a lot of stuff, so the blade arms got mixed up somewhere. They were wrapped up together, but I just couldn't find them. Came across them recently, and I found the blades to it that were at the storage unit, so it was more so just getting the blades and blade arms together so I can hang it up. But yeah, it's a fan I meant to test like 2 years ago, a little bit around the time I got it, but I figured I'd also wait maybe to do it around the 10-year mark of the channel because it's one of the first fans from my family side, or childhood fans of mine that I've shown. So I figured it'd be nice to see that after 10 years later, it's actually now a part of the collection and on a test rig. Now, the pull chains on it are the original ones from my childhood. I know they're not the originals for the fan. This deer one, I remember being on it all the time as a kid. This one they added like a year, like in 2002, I'd say, this silver extension one. I put another one that's similar to this, but I figured since it's how the fan was since I was a kid, I'd rather leave it the way it is. But yeah, there's the logo, Bahama. There's a tag for the motor of it in there on the side of the motor. With the lighting here, I can't really show it well, but I do get it shown pretty well on another video I did of it at my grandmother's house. I think it was the most recent one I did there before it was removed. But yeah, I removed all the fans there, the Hugger fan that was in the kitchen, the Hampton Bay-ish one, and the Hampton Bay Clarksons, the anti-grass one that replaced the mainstay, not the mainstay, the Home Trends 42-inch white Hugger that I don't have, sadly. But I do have the Aloha Breeze that was in the kitchen as I have tested it down here before. But that one is definitely due for a remake. And I do have the Home Trends Hugger that she used to have in the bedroom before the Clarkson went up. And it got replaced because a blade arm broke on it, but you figured it was just better to get a different fan. They gave off more lighting. Although the Clarkson didn't really give off that much lighting compared to it, it looked nicer in her room. But yeah, it got donated to a thrift store, so it wasn't tossed. But I do know that the white Clarkson that was in there, originally I was going to put it in her kitchen, but then we put it in a guest room. So yeah, and that was the one I got back in 2013 to put up in the kitchen at the old apartment. So, and that one's definitely, all of those are going to be testing it, but I had to do a new fan videos of those first and locate all the parts, kind of the same issue with this one. But the blades and blade arms for those are all wrapped up and everything. I know they're at the storage unit and some are here. I know the blade arms for a few of them are here, so yeah. The white bulbs in the glass are the exact, well, the glass is original to the fan white kit. I know for a fact that the white kit didn't come with the fan unit pack. She definitely bought it like as an add-on. From what she told me, she got it with the fan. I think she was telling me that she got it unipacked, but from what I've seen, these did not come with a unipacked white kit. But like, could be mistaken. But yeah. So I've seen some variants of these that have 4 or 5 blade models with cane option or solid oak. This one has solid oak on both sides and such. Oh yeah, I mean, it's honestly held up pretty well for its age, being used in my grandmother's house. I mean, she never really would let it get filthy and such. She would and such. And later on, as she got older and would tend to forget sometimes to do it, I'd always do it for her and such. But yeah, this is a extremely major childhood fan. I think it's made by CEI, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't think so though, because it has date codes and all that on the top. But yeah. And here's what it is with the light. I remember she would unscrew some of the light bulbs, and she didn't want to use all of them, which smart idea. I actually do that with the Low Profile Plus in the kitchen, the Hunter one that I have. Like, because I don't have the 3-way pull chain on it. But yeah, I remember telling my grandmother, oh, like I remember like offering her different fans to swap this out with, and she didn't want to at the time. But then she said, whenever it does get taken down, I can have it. And yeah, it gives off good lighting, and I don't blame her because she was always the person that liked to hold on to stuff, and still is to this day, but not as much like before. But yeah, and here it is on low. But I do know that she also told me this is her first ceiling fan ever, and it's in the house that my dad and uncles grew up in. And yeah, so I feel like it was also like special to her in the way that it was her first ceiling fan and such. And it did its job, honestly. Like, it's not the most powerful fan in the world, especially being a hugger, but for what it is, it actually does push a good breeze. Like, I'd say it's on par with like some of the Hampton Bay fans that push a better breeze. Like, it's on par with like a Hampton Bay Carousel, I'd say, or like around those lines where they're actually not a bad air mover for what it is. And from what I've heard, these fans were Bahama as a brand was like a lumber store brand where they'd sell them at various lumber stores until they went defunct in 2001. I'm not sure how long this brand was around for, maybe late 80s going into the 90s. Somebody I posted a picture of it in the groups asking about some of the origins of the brand, and there was, I forget the names already, but basically it was like a lumber store brand from what I've gathered. And they were sold it kind of like there's like a brand called Boston Harbor, for an example, and I know there's some hardware stores that sell those ceiling fans that are kind of like relabeled with some older Hampton Bay fans and such, but those are more like hardware store branded fans. They're not exclusive to like a Pacific hardware store brand, but like they're sold through hardware stores, like Arbitron Hardware, Ace Hardware, possibly some other ones. Just as an example. But yeah, I remember like seeing this fan a lot, and I really liked it. And then I was comparing my Hampton Bay Carousel after it got installed to this one, since they both have 4 lights. And then when we got the 2001 catalog from Home Depot, I remember seeing the Chatham, and to me it was so cool because it's like, oh, it's a fan that looks very similar to my grandmother's living room fan, except it has 3 lights, and they're like integrated and not like a 3-arm light and such. But yeah, this is like the fan that I've always wanted to get the most from family members up in the United States. This and the Coastal Breeze that I got from my aunt and uncles, the white one that had the spotlight. with the blades painted yellow. That's because those are like the two oldest ones I still would see to this day, and also they were like the first two fans I'd see as well. That Coastal Breeze, I definitely need to get around to testing as well. It's just that one I've been trying to clean up quite a bit. I just need to find. I'm looking to get another set of blades on it to show it with the white blades because I don't want to paint over the yellow blades since that's how my aunt wanted it painted. So I kind of want to. I'm going to show it with both two sets of blades, so that's why that one hasn't gone around to getting tested yet. Then I also need to see which bin, or I don't know if it's in the storage unit or not. I think it's in my room somewhere, but I haven't come across it yet. I'm pretty sure it's in my closet in one of those bins there. Because when I moved everything out of the old storage unit into the new one, I checked every single bin that was there, and none of them had that fin inside of it. Yeah, so like I remember in 2001, this was like the only fan there. Then 2002 came, the home trans was installed, and I was so excited. I mean, it was installed while I was in the Dominican at the time, but when I came back, it was installed, and I was so happy to see another fan installed in my grandmother's house. And then coming into 2003, she got the Aloha Breeze, new in the box. They're all new in box, the home trans and the Aloha Breeze fan. Yeah, to this day, I wish I gotten that home trans one, but I have one new in the box that's identical to it and such. But yeah, it's just my dad thought that it wasn't really worth keeping to use in the kitchen, which, cause that was the thing. I was trying to take it also to use it in my kitchen at the old apartment, but also he knew that my mom would not want me bringing home a fan at the time, which was definitely true. So in some ways it was for the best because it would have been a battle just trying to get the fan into the apartment. But yeah, I use the this fan as a example because my grandmother, I remember picking out the Clarkson with her. I was mentioning to her how it was kind of similar in terms of the finish appearance of this fan, which I know she always liked a lot. And that's how we ended up getting the Clarkson for her bedroom. And again, I do have all those fans from her house. It's just I need to get around to testing them. But I honestly wanted to do this one first, and I also want to test the home trends and the Aloha Breeze down here, and then those ones. All right, now I'm moving up to medium. This fan always did have a bit of a wobble, so it's nothing that surprises me. And it's also because some of the blades were warping quite a bit. So I did flip them over, but not sure if I have them on the same exact directions as they were when they were installed, so that could also be the other reason. I also remember when I installed the Kodak Regency in the living room at the old apartment, when we replaced the carriage house too, that I always liked that the light kit was so similar to this one, and such. Had that fan been a flush mountable fan, I would have tried to convince my grandmother to let me install one of those in her living room. Because originally when we got both of those fans, one was going to go in her kitchen and the other one was going to go in my living room and such. But then when when we realized that it couldn't be flush mounted, she gave me the other one. And that was the one that ended up being installed in the living room, and the one that I got from her, because she bought both of them. And the other one that went with me originally was going to be in the dining room, and then the one that I got from her ended up having issues, for those who remember. And I do know somebody that can actually bring it back to life, so I'm going to try to get that fan fixed hopefully soon. But back to this fan, there's so many times I remember going there as a kid in the summertime, always trying to sneak in, like helping my dad with yard work just to be inside and be under this fan to cool down. And then I got caught, and I was like, oh, time to go back to work. Or just to even see the fan in general, too. I just really enjoyed seeing it. Yeah, like, it really isn't a bad performing fan for what it is. Like, I was always impressed with it. I mean, the build quality on it isn't the best on it, obviously, but it's not as bad as one would expect. I mean, the blades are flimsy, but the blade arms are a little bit more sturdier than some other generic huggers I've seen. Like, they're not as flimsy, the blade arms. Like, whenever I think of, like, antique brass fans, I always, like, go back to think of this one. This actually could even be the first antique brass fan I ever saw as a kid. But since I was a toddler at the time, I wouldn't have remembered. Now, something I would have loved to have done is found a handmade Chatham to swap it with. But by the time that was happening, we were in the lockdown when I got my own antique brass one. But also, they're not so common anymore like they used to be. I mean, they're not a rare fan, but you don't really see them popping up that much. If you do, it's more so in the white finish. As a lot of the brass ones at this point have already been replaced by stuff. Alright, now to move it up to high. I'm not trying to rush through the test. It's just I've done so many videos of it in the past where I've explained how much it means to me. And if I went ahead and did that in this video would be over 40 minutes long. And people who are watching this video, you guys probably have already heard the stories of it so many times, so I'm kind of fraying away from it a little bit as much as I can. That's so I can get around to actually showing the performance with commentary though, but just toning it down a bit. But yeah, I remember that one time I got a video of my grandmother on video basically saying that I can have this fan. Okay, for me, it was like a victory moment for me. I was like, oh, she finally gets given me the permission to have this fan one day. Because as I said, I was always worried that I wouldn't end up getting this fan and it would end up getting tossed or something, or if it broke down, I wouldn't get it. But for almost 30 years that she used it, it's definitely held up really well. I mean, I'm not sure if it was installed in like 92 to 93, but I mean, it's 32 years old as of this year, so. And it's definitely running like it was new. I mean, I wasn't there when it was installed when I was new, because I wasn't born yet, but. Yes, I mean, I know Bahama fans, from what people have said, that they're not really a good quality brand, which I definitely can agree. But this one's definitely held up well for all these years, and it's never given my grandmother issues. The only time I had an issue was like the white poaching got stiff and that ground wire hitting the motor over the years. But the fan itself, though, it's always worked well. I even remember at the time I was thinking of offering the Highline hug ceiling fan that I have in place of this, because I know that one's a lot better performer and has a cast motor and such. But one, that was a fan that I knew if I got rid of that, I wouldn't. It's very rare for me to find another one like that again. And also, I knew the performance on it would have been too strong for her, because my grandmother isn't never really like super strong performances on fans. She gets cold easily. And this one even made her cold sometimes as well, so. And again, I mean, this fan is honestly not really a bad performer for what it is. It's actually impressive, in my opinion. I mean, there's definitely other fans in my collection that move more than this that aren't stack motor fans like Casablanca. Like, I'd say it's honestly kind of close to the air mover, like a spinner motor hunter fan, to be honest. Like, it's around that category, spinner motor hunter, typical Hampton Bay-ish air movement. So it's not like Walmart performance. It's nowhere near that. Or Heritage. There's nothing close to that type of air performance. It's definitely a pretty solid performer for the type of fan that it is. Like, it's definitely a fan that will do its job, cool you down. And my grandmother's house was always pretty cool. It was never really super hot and such. And I always never felt like, as a kid and even into my teenage years while doing the channel, I never felt that this fan didn't do a good enough job. I always felt that it did its job well and always kept me cool. I never felt that like, oh, I needed more air movement out of it. And this is one of these situations where, for a lot of collectors, it's like, oh, I'm getting an exact childhood fan to become part of the collection is always very a great feeling and an awesome moment. It's exactly the case for this one here. Now, if I never did get it, would it have been tricky to find another one, another Bahama hugger like this, and had to find a like it for it? I mean, it wouldn't have been difficult, but it wouldn't feel as special. Because it could, like, this is the first generic hugger I've seen as a kid, and it's probably like one of the earliest fans I know that I saw throughout my life. Honestly, I don't know what's the exact first fan I saw, but because I was a toddler, but I know this is definitely on that list of one of the first ones I saw as a kid. I mean, the fact that this one predates me owning the Hampton Bay Carousel, that kind of goes, and that's like, to me, it's the biggest childhood thing. I have so many memories of that, and it also fueled the fan interest more. This one was like one of the really early ones where I liked fans a lot at the time, but I probably would still have been interested in them if it wasn't for the Carousel. But this is one that I remember enjoying a lot even before I got to Carousel. I remember the fan I was going to use to replace this for my grandmother, was the Hampton Bay Glendale in oiled up bronze. I ended up first getting it to replace one of the Reddington 4s at my dad's house in the log cabin. And I was going to try to get another one afterwards to replace both of them. And then when I found out that when I figured that I could use it to swap this out, that was going to be the plan. But then when I found out the house was going to get sold, I figured maybe hold off on doing that and just swap the Bahama out with something cheap, which was that mainstay thing that got left behind. Now to just spin down. Yeah, I'll show it on reverse. But yeah, so I saved the Glendale and installed it in her bedroom at the house that her and my dad live in now. And I'm glad I saved it for that, because if that wasn't the case, I would have ended up trying to find another hugger fan like this to install it in her room just to remind her of this one. But like, Glendale does a good job, and also I figured it would be better just to give her a brand new fan, not a used one. Unless I found one that was new in the box, but the thing is, who knows if it could have an issue like the Code Up did, where after sitting around for almost 30 years, that it can have a capacitor fail within less than a year, or the reverse switch and stuff. Because that's what happened with my Code Up Regency, so I figured maybe just give her a new fan from this time period, not one that's new old stock, because if it went out by the time I got up there to fix it, it would have been a while, so I just figured maybe just give her something that won't give her any troubles. The only other thing I can see myself probably putting in that's new stock that I wouldn't be as worried about is like a brass Hunter fan from the 90s, early 2000s era in antique brass. Like a Passport 2 or Passport 3. Could, but yeah, what's done is done. I even did regrettably almost offer this up to install in my grandmother's bedroom at the new place, but my dad said he just figured that it looked a bit old and such. It'd be better just to give her something newer, which I agreed. And I honestly wouldn't have minded having it, but I feel like it's almost like, oh, you got it, and then you gave it away again type thing. So, and at the same time, it's lasted her 30 years, so I feel like it's definitely due for not retirement, but like given a break, I guess, from use, and just have it be admired at this point, which is what I'm doing. Having it's one of my prized possessions in my collection. And let another fan take the job of keeping her comfortable and cool. Plus, in that apartment, I feel like she doesn't need this much lighting there, but who knows? The other thing is just, who knows if it can get more worn out and damaged over the time of it being used there, so that's the other reason why I figured it's just better to give her something newer. Because I know for a fact this fan definitely got a lot of use throughout the years. It's not like the fan that I would never see on. Like, I remember she would definitely reverse it whenever I reversed it for her in summertime. When it went back down to dry draft, it'd be on basically all the time. So it's not like that it was never really used. It's gotten a lot of use over the years. I mean, I guess you could say I'm kind of basically retired it from use. Now, if I was to ever get my own place, would I ever install this? Possibly not, only because I want to preserve it as much as possible instead of using it. Unless I had like a small room, like just a older room, like with wood paneling, I'd probably install this. Who knows? It's also one that I kind of wouldn't want to anyways, just because I wouldn't want to have like a blade get broken on it or something. I want to try to keep it as original as possible. But just hearing it though, without that ticking sound, definitely, I'm maybe surprised that it's as quiet as it did. I always thought it would have had a bit of a hum to it. And it did have one a bit at my grandmother's house, but I feel like that was more so because the motor housing was a bit loose. Because when they redid the ceiling there to have that like swirl pattern, some of it kind of covered up. I guess the box here made it that the part of the housing couldn't be held up by the screws on the other side of it. So that's why in some of the videos you'd see that it looked like the housing was crooked, and that's because of the ceiling. Alright, now shut it off, and yeah, that'll be it for this video. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for more videos to come.